This is Area 51, The Dreamland Chronicles by David Darlington. The Legend of America's Most Secret Military Base. This was published in 1997, I believe. Just double check. I know my dad bought this in 1997. And it's funny, my father and I were about to go on a trip to, this is dated from October 29th of 1997, and we were actually about to drive up to check out Dulce, New Mexico. We had heard rumors of a secret base up there. So we were in the Barnes & Noble bookstore in Lubbock, Texas, and we were looking through, and that's when my dad first explained to me how to use a subject index of a book like this, and thankfully this had a good one. And we were going through looking for certain locations like Dulce, New Mexico, and buying the related books on that topic. So anyway, this is from 1997. Let me just confirm that. But this was the first book, 1997. This is the first book I ever got on Area 51. In the end of this video, I'm going to link a couple of my videos from, I made a trip in spring break of 1993 to Area 51 or to the outskirts. Obviously, they didn't let me in, but I went to the Little Alien and interviewed a couple of people there. So I'll put a couple of links at the end of that. So interesting snapshot from 1993 that I'll include in here. But this is a fascinating book in that it's kind of a snapshot of the mid-90s look at Area 51 and the subculture that was emerging at the time of all the people who had descended on Area 51 to try to kind of figure out what was going on. And in the early 90s, especially like late 80s really, was when John Lear declared that they were testing alien aircraft there. And that started its own little subculture of people saying, hey, if you go out on a Wednesday night, you could see them test an alien spacecraft. So David Darlington does a great job of just kind of giving you the cast of characters. Some of the guys like Glenn Campbell, Pat, I can't think of their name, but Pat and his wife who ran the Little Alien restaurant and bar. And of course, John Lear, Bob Lazar, all those guys. Does a really good kind of breakdown of who everybody was, what they were up to. Very good snapshot of history there, and really fun read. He doesn't really get too much into, obviously he touches on kind of some of the prevailing theories, but the point of the book is, hey, this is the subculture that's emerging because of Area 51, and gets into some of the aerospace programs. And at the time, I think it was Testers Model Kits was coming out with the UFO model. So anyway, fascinating read, just a good snapshot of what was happening at the time, and some good pictures in here of some of the aircraft programs. And actually, surprisingly enough, there's a full spread there of Area 51, and I think, this was taken from Freedom Ridge, and I can't remember if Freedom Ridge is, I think that's the new vantage point, because I saw Area 51 from Whitesides Mountain in March of '93, and shortly after, the Bureau of Land Management increased that perimeter and took that land back, and that became part of the security perimeter. So you can no longer climb up Whitesides Mountain. But anyway, good look at the aircraft programs and kind of the state of things in the mid-90s. Kind of my personal thought about stuff like Bob Lazar and companies like Lockheed and Northrop and some of those guys. I think it's important to realize that when you have people working on these high-tech aircraft programs, there's always a risk that someone could leak and spill valuable information. And the more sensitive that aircraft program, the more damage potential there is to have a leak of information. Now, obviously, you're going to have people sign all kinds of paperwork that says, if you talk, you're toast. You lose your pension, you lose everything. Not to mention potential criminal penalties and all that. But that will only take you so far. So, in my experience in talking to people who've worked at some of these aerospace companies, I've met several who claim to have seen alien vehicles. And I've heard several different words they used for those that were not necessarily, they didn't call them flying saucers. They just said, I've seen their vehicles, I think is how one gentleman said it to me. And one guy I talked to that was a Lockheed employee, when he went into one of the areas where they were working on some of these sensitive projects, and this is just what he was able to see. He said it was bordering on a religious experience when he saw some of this stuff that was so mind-blowing that it literally kind of broke his brain to see it in physical reality. And obviously he couldn't tell me what these things were, but my point in bringing all this up is I think there's a certain amount of pageantry that occurs and theater that occurs so that guys on these programs, the more sensitive, the more classified these programs are, some things are shown to them for the deliberate purpose of clouding their brain with crap, so that if they were to talk, there's enough crap mixed in that you can't tell, that they're going to have enough fiction mixed in with reality that it'll be very hard to discern which is which. And if they're seeing little hints of other realities, they're going to have a tough time sorting that out later on. I'm not saying these people are lying or being duped necessarily. I'm just saying that in order to protect these classified programs, I think what they see is exactly what they're supposed to see. And taking it back to Area 51 here, Bob Lazar recounts an experience when he was working out of Area 51, which, you can take it or leave it as to whether or not you think he really did that. But he recounts an experience where he saw from behind, he saw a man having a conversation with what appeared to be an alien being of some kind. Now, what he saw was very brief, but just enough, he saw enough context cues just in that he believed he was seeing an alien. Whether he was or not, none of us were there. It's hard to say, but I think it's fair to say the odds are high that he could have been put in a situation where he was shown something, or something was deliberately put within his field of vision that would lead him to believe the alien hypothesis. So, again, now to reiterate from some of my previous videos, I am an alien agnostic. I'm open to the idea of aliens, but I also think you also have to sort out deception from actual aliens. So anyway, so I think this is a fascinating book and fascinating view into that subculture. He takes kind of a somewhat sarcastic tone sometimes and kind of a doubtful tone about some of these guys. His take is these guys are just mistaking very high-tech aircraft for UFOs. And I think that's a little bit of a disservice, because I think there's some really advanced aircraft program that the technology is very terrestrial, but is so advanced, I think is still earth-shattering, that it's not a matter of someone mistaking it. It really is advanced on a level that would break your brain. So anyway, I digress. So Area 51 by David Darlington from 1997. Great book. If you're into this sort of thing, if you're into just looking into subcultures like this, it's a fascinating read.